Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be showcasing a budget team in the Open Ultra League that had great results despite having no XL candies used and no legendary Pokemon. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Maki, so many thanks for the battle submission. The team features a Skeledirge on the lead, a pretty spicy pick, Hyper Beam Milotic as the save switch, and as the closer, Gyarados. And this team of 3 non-XL Pokemon is able to work together to KO XLs and Legendaries left and right. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's check out the budget team in action in the Ultra League. We see mirror leads in the first match, Skeledirge versus Skeledirge. Farming up energy here, not going to go for charge attack priority, instead making a switch into Milotic to catch the opponent's Disarming Voice bait. The opponent is now going to send in Registeel. Obviously a pretty terrible matchup for Milotic, but this is the goal of the Milotic save switch. Check and see, does the opponent have something in the back that Gyarados does not want to see, bait it out, and then trust in Gyarados to close in the endgame. The Zap Cannon connects, picking up the knockout, back in comes the Skeledirge, and the energy stored from earlier is going to be very helpful here. Firing off the Shadow Ball, that does quite a lot of damage. Skeledirge continuing to farm. Opponent is going to make it to a Zap Cannon. We will see the no shield from the Skeledirge as the Zap Cannon connects. That does lower the attack, but Skeledirge is going to nearly get a massive farm down as the opponent saves the Registeel last second and sends in their own Skeledirge. Opponent shields up the Shadow Ball, and they lose charge attack priority. That is absolutely massive here, as the opponent is forced to give up both shields. And now you can just let the Skeledirge go and trust in the Gyarados in the back. The Registeel has been preserved, but it is very low on health. Gyarados continuing to farm. We're going to see a charge attack fired off by the Skeledirge and a shield as the opponent goes for Disarming Voice. Gyarados continuing to farm. Gyarados going to fire off the Aqua Tail, wanting to pick up the knockout here before the opponent is able to grab the final shield. Down goes Skeledirge in the back. It's going to be Greedent. So the opponent has an XL Pokemon in Greedent, and of course the XL Legendary in the Registeel. And despite that, this budget team is looking to be in a winning position here in this endgame. Gyarados is continuing to farm. Opponent will go for another Body Slam. Again, the Mud Shot Body Slam combination is incredibly quick. Gyarados continuing to farm and going for the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail not going to be enough to KO, but it will get the Greedent extremely low. Gyarados continuing to farm, making it to the Aqua Tail. This is going to pick up the knockout. All that's left in the back is the low health Registeel. Opponent has to make it to a charge move to win, but they succumb to the Dragon Breaths, and that's a good game. Moving into the next match, picking up an amazing lead, Skeledirge into Virizion. Opponent save switches into Jellicent, and Jellicent is going to be answered with Gyarados. The Jellicent does have a pretty decent energy lead here, as of course the Incinerate was thrown before switching. Opponent will go for the Shadow Ball, and that is going to be shielded up by the Gyarados. Gyarados firing off the Crunch. Crunch will do some solid damage. The Jellicent will be able to withstand it. Unfortunately, no defense drop from the Crunch. Jellicent is going to be firing off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to connect. Gyarados continuing to farm. Gyarados at the last second deciding to go for the Aqua Tail just to guarantee alignment here. The Aqua Tail is going to pick up the knockout. Back in comes the Virizion. If the Virizion does have Stone Edge, then the energy they get here will be threatening to the Skeledirge, but a Stone Edge is still not going to be able to pick up a knockout. So even if they throw as the Skeledirge, you can afford to no shield here. Opponent throws on alignment, giving an entire Incinerate for free. And they went for a Leaf Blade, so they do not have that Stone Edge. In the back, it's Pidgeot. Pidgeot going to be met with a Disarming Voice. Disarming Voice will be shielded up, and now we see the switch into Milotic. Now, Milotic can potentially run Blizzard as its secondary charge move, but that would leave your energy completely walled against something like Tentacruel. Opponent is going to full send the Brave Bird there. That does massive damage to Milotic, but now, of course, the opponent is going to be taking massive damage now that they've lowered their defense. This is going to be the Feather Dance here. Opponent going to lower Milotic's attack, but Milotic is able to hang on, withstand the damage, and make it to the Surf. Surf is going to pick up the knockout. All that's left in the back is the Virizion, and the opponent concedes the match. Moving into the next match, putting Skeledirge into Giratina Altered. Bit of an uncomfortable lead for the Skeledirge. We will see a save switch into Milotic. Milotic farming up energy here as Giratina will fire off a Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw not too threatening to Milotic. Milotic does have some pretty nice bulk. This Milotic, of course, is not running Blizzard, but the opponent does not know that. Purely off fast moves, this Giratina is below half health. Milotic continuing to farm, going for the Surf as the opponent switches into Talonflame, trying to catch a Blizzard, but this Milotic does not have Blizzard. Milotic able to make it to Surf number 2. This is going to force a shield from the opponent, as the opponent is going to get a farm down. So they do leave with a potential Fly or Brave Bird loaded. In comes the Skeledirge, and Skeledirge is going to no shield as Talonflame fires off its energy. It is going to be the Fly, and Skeledirge, instead of going for charge attack priority, is going to no shield here. The Fly is going to connect. I love the switch into Gyarados here. We save a charge move on that Skeledirge for later, and in the back, it's their own Skeledirge. So the opponent running a double fire strategy, and now there's a Gyarados, it's up energy, it's up a shield, and the opponent is in an incredibly difficult spot. Gyarados goes for the Aqua Tail, forcing a shield from the opponent, and we do see the opposing Skeledirge at 100 energy here. They're at Disarming Voice plus a Shadow Ball. They will go for the Disarming Voice, so then they can fire off the Shadow Ball. Gyarados more than happy to double shield here. Back in comes the Giratina, and there it is, the combo play back into the Skeledirge. Skeledirge picks up the knockout with the Disarming Voice, and that is a good game. Picking up a very tricky lead in the next match, Skeledirge into Greninja. The lightning fast pacing of Greninja does make this lead an uncomfortable one, so I do like to switch out into Milotic. Opponent can stay in here and fire off a Night Slash, but Night Slash is pretty easily survived by Milotic. Opponent is going to be sending in Pidgeot. Pidgeot is going to be met with a charge attack from Milotic. This is not enough for a potential Blizzard. Opponent knows that, so they are going to no shield. But Milotic able to make it to a second Surf, and this chip damage is adding up quite a bit onto the Pidgeot. Pidgeot continuing to farm. Pidgeot, odds are they're probably going for the Brave Bird here. Not really a point in going for the Feather Dance. They go for the Feather Dance, and as you can see there, the Feather Dance doesn't accomplish a lot for them as they're not able to make a play for switch. Back in comes the Greninja. Greninja firing off energy. We are going to see the Night Slash connect onto Milotic and pick up the knockout. Now in comes Gyarados. The Dragon Breaths will add up quite a bit onto Greninja. Greninja definitely not as common this season, with the fact that Poliwrath, of course, is extremely strong, and Poliwrath just absolutely shreds through Greninja. The Night Slash is going to connect. Gyarados looking for the farm down, not gonna happen, forced to go for the Aqua Tail to deny another Night Slash. The Aqua Tail will pick up the KO. In the back is Gliscor. Gliscor up energy could be a bit difficult for Skeledirge, but Gyarados is gonna try and grab shields. We now see the switch into this Skeledirge. Skeledirge farming up energy. Skeledirge calling the bait here. Is it the bait? It is the bait. It's the Night Slash. What a play. Very nicely done. And now the opponent is forced to go for Night Slashes. Night Slash will be shielded up. Skeledirge, no baits here. Going for the Shadow Ball. Opponent tries to call the bait. The Shadow Ball lands, and Skeledirge takes the win. Picking up a tough lead in the next match, Skeledirge versus Jellicent. Skeledirge farming up quite a lot of energy here. The opponent hasn't thrown yet either. We're going to see 80 energy banked on the Skeledirge, and now in comes Milotic to absorb energy. Opponent fires off the Shadow Ball. Milotic tanking that surprisingly well. Unfortunately, Milotic's charge moves are completely walled here, so we will see a no shield from the Milotic, basically just using it as a damage sponge. Milotic going to be firing off the Surf. Surf, of course, not very threatening to the Jellicent whatsoever, so Jellicent is going to let that through, and it ended up being a charge attack priority tie, so that is perfect for Milotic. Opponent goes for an undercharge. That is going to allow Milotic to make it to a second Surf, and this Surf is going to continue to get that Jellicent low. Jellicent, very low HP here, gonna send in the Skeledirge and fire off the Disarming Voice on charge attack priority. Disarming Voice is gonna pick up the KO. It's a Guzzlord in the back, sending in the Gyarados, and we do see Shadow Poliwrath. Shadow Poliwrath does have the potential ability to flip the Gyarados matchup just due to the fact that Icy Wind debuffs are absolutely crazy, but the opponent no shield in the first means that the Gyarados should be able to do pretty okay here. Gyarados now gonna go for a Crunch, trying to potentially get a debuff. The Crunch will connect. We do see the debuff connect, and the opponent is going to let themselves get as low as possible before picking up the knockout with the Icy Wind. Oh, they actually undercharge. That's a nice play by the opponent because they want energy on the Guzzlord. we see the Skeledirge continuing to farm. Skeledirge going to be at 100 energy here, which means they can't really go for move timing. They're going to have to try and throw, unfortunately going over 100 energy there for move timing, and in this instance, the extra fast move damage doesn't help a lot as the win con is going to be committing to triple Disarming Voice. Disarming Voice number 2 will be shielded. The Skeledirge is able to get there, able to make the Disarming Voice. Will this KO? You bet. That's double super effective damage, and Skeledirge takes the win. Moving into the next match, leading Skeledirge into Obstagoon. Not a bad matchup for the Skeledirge, even though it does get outpaced. Skeledirge is going to bank quite a bit of energy, save switch into Milotic. Opponent banks so much energy on the Obstagoon, and they send in Giratina. Not a terrible spot to be in as Milotic, especially when the opponent gives you a free Dragon Tail. That is quite nice. Now, this Milotic, of course, is not running Blizzard, but the opponent does not know that. The opponent is going to fire off another Dragon Claw. So the question is, can Milotic, as it goes for the Surf, grab a potential shield from the opponent if they respect the Blizzard? And they do respect the Blizzard. That's quite nice. At this point, it's unlikely the opponent is going to shield again, as they've seen it is just going to be the Surf. But as you can see, even with resisted damage here from the Surfs, this damage adds up onto the Giratina. The Surf is actually going to grab a shield, opponent forced to throw energy, Milotic putting in an insane amount of work in this mid game. And now in comes the Skeledirge. Skeledirge more than happy to no shield here, as the opponent is going to fire off the Shadow Sneak. Skeledirge gets the Incinerate farm down, leaving with quite a lot of energy. Opponent is going to send in Tentacruel and make a beautiful catch onto Obstagoon. What a play by the opponent. Oh my goodness. Absolutely sensational stuff. The opponent is going to be firing off the Night Slash. That gets shielded up by the Skeledirge. Skeledirge firing off the Disarming Voice. This will do quite a lot of damage. Disarming Voice connects. We now see a switch into the Gyarados. Gyarados looking to go for a Dragon Breath farm down and try and make it to a crunch versus that Tentacruel. But the Obstagoon will not be denied, able to make it to another Night Slash. This will get the Gyarados below half health. Gyarados gets the farm down, back in comes the Tentacruel, and these poison jabs are adding up. Gyarados firing off the Crunch. Again, this Crunch does not get same type attack bonus, but it does get a defense drop. Gyarados could have potentially made it to a crunch, so the opponent is going to fire off their energy. They go for an Acid Spray. The Acid Spray is not going to be enough to pick up the KO. The Aqua Tail is reached. This is not going to do a lot of damage to the Tentacruel, but at this point, all chip damage is helpful, and the opponent needs 2 charge attacks, and that's just not going to happen. Even with an Acid Spray bait, even if they have 2 here, Skeledirge would win charge attack priority. Skeledirge able to make it to the Shadow Ball, so despite the amazing catch by the opponent, catching a Shadow Ball onto Obstagoon, Skeledirge is still able to take the win. Moving into the next match here, leading Skeledirge into the opponent's Talonflame. 2 better responses in the back, so we will see a save switch into Milotic, and the opponent stays in this matchup for quite some time and then sends out XL Lantern. This team is triple weak to XL Lantern, so this is going to be an extremely tough game. The Hyper Beam does land, that does quite a lot of damage, but the opponent banked a lot of energy on the Talon. Of course, the entire team is weak to the Lantern, so this is already looking like a very difficult game to win. You can't afford to send in the Gyarados here. The Sparks would just do way too much damage, so just going to send in the Skeledirge instead. Skeledirge going to be hit with the Surf. That does a solid amount of damage. Skeledirge continuing to farm. Cannot get the farm down. The opponent would have made it to another Surf, so we will see the Disarming Voice thrown to pick up the knockout. Opponent going to send in Talonflame. Talonflame going to fire off the Fly here. Fly should be enough to pick up the knockout, and it's all up to Gyarados. Gyarados needing to pull off the impossible here, and 1v2 in the endgame. Talonflame goes for a Flame Charge, more expensive than the Fly, but will of course boost up the opponent's attack. Firing off the Aqua Tail here. Aqua Tail is going to be shielded by the opponent. They're smelling blood in the water at this point, understanding that a boosted Talonflame is extremely threatening to the Gyarados. Gyarados continuing to farm. It can't quite get the farm down. In the back, it's Jellicent, and we do see an Aqua Tail bait. The Aqua Tail gets no shielded by the opponent, but even if the Crunch was able to land, Crunch is not enough to knock out here, and the opponent will be able to make it to a Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball is going to mean game over there. So unfortunately, the XL Lantern does beat the entire team, and it does prove to be a bit too much to handle. Hopping into the final match, leading Skeledirge into Trevenant. Amazing lead for the Skeledirge. Opponent staying in this matchup. That is very kind of them. Look at the Incinerate damage. Oh my goodness. Opponent is going to be baiting with a Seed Bomb, so they have one Shadow Claw residual, and we're going to see Skeledirge firing off the Disarming Voice. The Incinerates have done enough that this will be able to pick up a knockout. Opponent throws their energy, but importantly, this is only 6 Shadow Claws. This can only be a Seed Bomb, so Skeledirge is going to no shield, get a full farm down, and leave with so much energy. In comes Nidoqueen. We're going to see a pivot into Milotic, and the opponent is now going to send in Poliwrath. But if Poliwrath is running the standard moveset of the Icy Wind and the Scald, their energy is going to be completely walled here, and they do go for the Icy Wind, and this is where having Hyper Beam can come in clutch. Milotic firing off the Hyper Beam, that connects, dealing some pretty significant damage to the Poliwrath. Poliwrath getting very, very low on HP here. Poliwrath will need a Scald to knock out, and the Scald doesn't even knock out either. Oh my goodness. Choosing not to throw the move there, instead just going for energy on the Gyarados. At this point, the opponent recognizes there is no longer a win con, and they resign the match. All in all, this is one of the more creative Open Ultra League teams that I've seen, and I really like how accessible it is. Milotic is a Pokemon that I don't think I've seen run since Ultra Premier, or Ultra Premier Classic was a thing way back in the day, so it's cool to see some of those Premier favorites like Milotic and Gyarados return, paired of course with the new free-to-play beast that is the Skeledirge. So very cool sets here from this trainer, and it is nice to see that even if you don't necessarily have the resources of, let's say, other trainers when it comes to legendaries and XL Pokemon, you can still compete, and as we saw, get some wins even when going up against teams that have them. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.